And welcome to the Sheffield Documentary Festival session on Meet the Commissioners. My name is Ed Taylor, and I'm the MD of independent unscripted production company called Honeybee. We have about 90 minutes, so we've got plenty of time, and we're going to have 15, 20 minutes at the end for any questions. So do scan this QR code up here and send them through on Slido, and we'll get through them at the end. We've got a fantastic variety of commissioners we've had this afternoon from basically all four corners of the earth. We've got America, we've got Australia, and we've got the UK. Dan, do you want to just start by introducing yourself and who you work for, and we'll work our way around?
Sure, yes. I'm Dan Corn. I'm Vice President of Programming at Hearst Networks. Now, Hearst Networks covers off Sky History, Crime and Investigation, and Blaze. So my team looks after around 2,000 hours that come into the organisation each year, most of which is either bought or from the States, but there is some commissioned content. I'm very aware it's quite hot. I just want to say we've got some water on stage, so if any of you need water, I'm here for you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Fernandez. I head up content development at ESPN across our 30 for 30s films, original series, shorts, and narrative podcasts. We're also starting to dip our toes into scripted content. Super honored to be here. This is literally one of my favorite festivals in the world. I don't say that sarcastically. I truly mean it. And we mainly commission ideas from inception, and so you'd come to me the moment you have a really good idea and you think it's worth listening. We do very few acquisitions, but we do still acquire content as well.
Hi, I'm Bethan Alwyn-Lewis, commissioning editor for Factual for SBS in Australia. So we're a free-to-air network. We're a multicultural broadcaster, and I think we're quite interesting because we have a point of difference, which is a charter. So we have a point of difference that we want to commission programs that somehow give the underrepresented a voice in some way. So that might be in the fabric of the content, or it might be representation on screen and off screen, and it's really fantastic to try and elevate voices like that, but in a really entertaining way. And we are predominantly or semi a sort of acquisitions network, but I'm a sort of commissioner of new content of Factual. So our content tends to want to act as sort of grenades in the schedule, try and pull in those broad audiences and sort of elevate. So yeah, that's sort of my role.
Hi everyone, I'm Florencia Donagaray. I'm an assistant commissioner working at BBC Children's. I work on factual and fact-and content for CBBC, so that is our 7 to 12 channel. And we do primarily in the fact-end and factual space, we commission original content. So it's really great to be here because we have some exciting opportunities, and we're really always looking forward to working with new suppliers that we've never worked with before. So yeah, it's really great to be here.
Good afternoon. My name is Charlie Parsons. I'm a Senior Vice President of Global Development for National Geographic. Across all genres, natural history, culture, space, history, contemporary history, all genres, primarily aiming towards the National Geographic tile on Disney+. There's a slightly different pipeline if you're looking to do something for the linear channel, and a different pipeline if your aspirations are theatrical documentaries and the whole awards circuit. But on my side of the house, we usually focus on limited series and some sort of event specials, such as a clip I'm going to show in a little bit. But really thrilled to be here and so inspired by all the great storytellers who I bump into day in and day out up here in Sheffield.
Thank you. So if you've been to a Meet the Commissioner session before, usually they sort of are around the briefs and what they're looking for and that kind of stuff, and we are going to cover all those things. But we just thought we'd start with a slightly different endpoint to this, which was based on a conversation I had with a commissioner a few weeks ago. And that conversation went along these lines. We were talking about a piece of talent for a project, and he said, well, I really like them, but they'll never pass the barbecue test. I said, oh, right, okay. And he said, do you know what the barbecue test is? And I said, no, I have no idea what the barbecue test is. And he said, well, I'll tell you, but don't tell anyone. And he basically said, so his boss, who shall remain nameless, very, very successful controller of a channel that's done really, really well. Any piece of talent that they can't see in their garden at a barbecue is never going to make it onto the channel. Which is a very interesting kind of thing to think about. And it got me thinking about, well, when you go and pitch something to someone as a producer, you're pitching to an individual, and they're obviously representing a network. But where does the individual interest end and start, and where does the network tick list begin and start, and how does that work? So we thought we'd sort of put that to these guys here and just have a sort of talk about it in the early stages and just see what we could glean about that process, because fundamentally when you're talking to an individual, it's about a relationship, and so knowing about them is critical to that process. So we asked you to pick a clip that really represented something which you felt personally very strongly about, but also reflected your network's needs. Charlie, you're the only person on this panel who I haven't pitched to before, so I'm going to ask you to start. Do you mind telling us about yours?
Oh, happy to. Thank you. Sure. So the clip I'm going to show, so if anyone went to the Lisbon session yesterday with Keith Scully, this is a clip from our documentary special called Ocean with David Attenborough. And it is a gobsmacking, beautiful, beautiful film about the importance of the ocean, fronted by Sir David, Sir 99, just very recently. He's obviously the legend. He is the man. And the reason this works so great for us is because the cinematic excellence, the emotional storytelling wrapped into a call to action film. But for my money, it is the most sort of wonderful and memorable call to action film. Sometimes personally, I feel that the message gets shoved down the throat. In this film, this is a love letter to the oceans that along the way almost breaks your heart. And the clip that I'm going to show is the one that came closest to breaking my heart. And then Sir David brings it back at the end to give some hope. But this is a clip that some folks might have seen already, but it's definitely worth playing again. And it's just showing how we're mistreating our oceans, and that's saying it lightly. Put a button on it, and then we got to keep moving. That's a Silverback Films Open Planet production, and on the Nat Geo side, a colleague, Janet Vissering, some of you may know, and my boss, Tom McDonald, who a lot of you probably do know or have heard of, had a hand in it. I'm a fanboy of the show, so I'm sort of breaking your rules. I had nothing to do with this one, but it just impacted me so much as a viewer that I wanted to play it, but all the credit goes to Open Planet, Silverback, and then my colleagues, Tom and Janet. But yeah, it's like, I don't eat scallops anymore because of that. That's what they're usually going for. So unless I know it's a hand-doved for scallop, someone hand-dived for it, I'm out. So this changed my personal behavior, how I choose my food.
Thanks, Charlie. Bethan, do you want to tell us about your clip?
Yeah, it's very difficult to follow that. It's an incredible clip. So I think, going to sort of my role really, and it sort of talks into my passion, I think that the way commissioning at SBS is sort of genre agnostic. So I will commission anything from history to popular science, factual formats. It could be sort of big competition formats, singles, feature docs. So I think the common denominator in terms of passion really is sort of uncovering untold stories that really have an impact. And I think that's sort of what drives any of the shows that I sort of look for. And the clip that we're going to show today is one that not only does that in abundance and reveals lots of hidden stories, but it also did a really good job for us in the network in terms of filling a hole in the gap in the schedule. So history rates really, really well for us. It's sort of one of our highest rated genres. And we'd had sort of big landmark shows, things like Australia in Colour, and also Who Do You Think You Are, or more of a sort of populist end, has been running for 17 seasons. And so I personally was trying to look for what else can we have that sort of taps into this really great audience that we've got, that feels repeatable, but also has that really good untold story angle. And the one clip that we're going to show is The Secret DNA of Us, and I can talk a bit about it later.
Dan, sticking with a history tip, you had a clip as well from Sky History, didn't you?
Yes, indeed, yeah. I find myself having barbecue guest envy. Having Attenborough at your barbecue, that's pretty impressive. So look, we take a very sort of populist approach to history storytelling, I think it's fair to say, and our presenters and our talent is incredibly important for the network. So this came to us, we have a long-running franchise on Sky History, and indeed in history in the US, called Ancient Aliens, sort of based on this idea that the pyramids might have been built with some extraterrestrial assistance, which has become very popular thanks to Graham Hancock and people like Eric von Daniken. Anyway, a company came to us, Studio Crook, Matt Crook came and said, Bradley Walsh thinks that the pyramids were built by aliens. And I said, okay, well, that's a great opener, but is there a show there? And there was a show there because Bradley himself he was an apprentice engineer at Rolls-Royce before he got into the entertainment business, and they created this rather wonderful show and I'll just say a line about it at the end as to why something very unexpected happened, suffice to say. It didn't go over budget or anything, but something unexpected happened which made it a great show, I think. I think the thing I wanted to say is that the barbecue analogy I think is quite interesting, because really it's not about my own barbecue, which you get a very odd guest list at. It's really about our audience's barbecue and who they'd be inviting. And we know from our research they love Bradley. So having Bradley was a real gift, because not only is he a very decent, nice guy with some very bizarre theories, but he was able to communicate with people in a very, just completely on their level. And I think there's a warmth and a humour to it. And he started to flirt heavily with the Egyptologist Meredith, which really made the thing, made it sing. So I was really pleased with it.
That would be an interesting headline out of this session. Flo, going over to TBBC.
Yeah, so I'm going to show a clip that belongs to a film that we commissioned as part of our My Life series. So My Life series is a purely docu series, and the film, it was one of those where when we saw the pitch, we instantly went like, yes, because as you'll see now, it has all of the elements of a great story. Like, the subject was completely surprising to us. It's about a sport that I'd be surprised if a lot of you in the audience know about, but it has a Pakistani origin and it's starting to boom here in the UK, and it's specifically in Bradford. So it was amazing to be able to shine a light on Bradford and the amazing community behind that sport. The contributors are superb. The story had, the potential for stunning visuals was incredible. It was a story full of jeopardy, and we know that kids need to have a reason to stay with a film. They don't settle anymore. Their childhoods are very different to how our childhoods were. So we really need to keep our films ticking along, and this film has it all. And it's been done by a small indie, they're called Soul Street, and they're just down the road, they're in the Hope Valley. So for me, as a kind of non-British woman living in the UK, I love how this story explores multiculturalism in a really organic way, because we're all about reflecting the lives of UK kids and their interest and showing how multicultural this society is. So this film ticked all of the boxes, and yeah, we're really proud of it.
Very good. So nipping back across the pond again to the US, Catty, what's your project that you want to tell us about?
Well, I'll share a little bit of what we've been doing on the 30 for 30 brands, which I think is one of our most recognized brands. It's been standing for over 15 years. It is remarkable, I think, because a lot of people, when they think about sports, they think about X's and O's. They think that it might not be for them. And the way that I think about sports is as a communal language. When I came to the United States from the Dominican Republic, I didn't speak English, so I played sports. And so when I am commissioning, we're really looking for you to tell me what that specific moment in time means for you. And so is the 30 for 30 in Films brand. We're really leaning into what a director's perspective is on that. Because the way that, just even yesterday when I got in my cab in London, it was Juneteenth, and the way that I was talking about Juneteenth and he was talking about Juneteenth and my colleague was talking about Juneteenth is very different. So I'm really looking for what that moment meant, and usually it starts with sports but spans into much larger topics and conversation, whether that is culture or, sexism or geopolitics, right? Like, we have Brittany Griner's story that we're telling. Of course, it starts with her and what happened to her in Russia, but it really tells the story of this woman who, played in the WNBA, who came out, what her career was like now as a parent with her and her wife having a child. It's much deeper than that specific moment. And so you'll see a little bit about what we commission, and it's not just, your meat and potato, since we're talking about food, although I am going to lunch after this. I didn't realize I was hungry until you used that analogy. It really spans beyond what athleticism looks like.
So thank you. So one more question on this sort of subject of the person and the network and how they come together before we move on to the actual briefs. To what extent, as an open question, should a producer or someone coming to pitch something to you check your LinkedIn profile or Google you or find out a bit more about you before they come and talk to you, as well as understanding what your viewers are looking for and what your network's looking for and what you might have looked at in the past?
Who do you want it?
Dan.
When I saw this question, I thought actually it's really not desperately important to know a lot about me. I'm very happy to tell you if you've got a spare hour or so. But it's much more important to know about the audience and the channel and what you're, it's like, you know, we're the current custodians of brands that have existed for a long, long time. So it's just very important, you know, the thing for Sky History Say is that we're not aiming at the kind of, you know, metrosexual, sophisticated London audience. That's not who we are. We've got more audience in Scotland, for example, than we have in London. So understanding who you're pitching to, I mean, I know as a producer how important that is. Just taking the trouble to watch the channel, even if it's for an evening, you know, and just understanding the vibe and what we're after is much more important than looking me up on LinkedIn.
I second that, and then personally, just only saying this because it's a bit of an inside joke, is that I happen to have the same name as the executive producer of Survivor. So if you Google me, and IMDb, it's all commingled. So every month, someone calls, and the first thing they say, before we start the pitch, I want to say my family and I love Survivor so much. It's our favorite show, and I always have to let them down, and everybody says, you should just roll with it, Charlie. So there's another Charlie Parsons, so don't Google me because you'll get a mixed bag, and some of the shows I've been across, some of them I haven't been. So for me, that's that. But I totally agree with Dan.
You're telling me I'm just now finding out I'm your colleague that you did not do Survivor?
Sorry to break it to you here in front of everybody. Yeah. But yeah, so Dan's totally right. And I think another couple things is, you know, at least for Nat Geo, we have a creative brief that we send out to agents and to producers that gets updated regularly. As Dan said, please watch our air, check out our website. But on the other hand, what we have now, maybe not what we're looking for later. So sort of be inspired by it, and maybe the first question should have, I watched this, that, and the other thing. Are you still looking for that type of content? Because sometimes people come in hot with ideas that are like what we have just now, but we kind of moved on because we have those. So it's the, you know, current slate does not necessarily reflect what we're looking for in the future. So just keep an open mind that way.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think what's tricky is, you know, often, I don't know if it happens elsewhere, but sometimes you feel like people are sort of developing ideas in silos and sort of are pitching ideas that don't feel connected to your network. And I think what's tricky is that often we actually have a job to do. We're filling holes in schedules. It can often be quite specific. Like we were talking about that hole with, you know, we wanted a new returnable sort of history show. And so if you're not regularly meeting with commissioning editors that you feel connected to, you're not necessarily going to know that. And I am a big fan of sort of, if you're starting to build a relationship with a commissioning editor, that you feel sort of the network has a connection to you, you should try and meet them fairly regularly just to keep on top of, because like you said, it's changing all the time. And we often do pitch out some sort of very clear briefs about holes, and when we've done that, we actually have had almost every time a commission from it. So it's like keeping open to what we're looking for, and we're often pitching that out as press releases as well. Yeah.
I think for me, it's a mix. I won't remove the heart out of it completely. I think digital media has made it feel very accessible for people to feel connected. I mean, I have gotten pitched in an elevator, and I did end up doing that as an idea. Do not walk me to my hotel after this. That might not be the way to get your project commissioned today, but I would say, like, for me, just even when I was talking, you know, when we were starting the panel, there's a bunch of amazing filmmakers I connected with last year here, and we hosted a small dinner with them yesterday, and we're constantly trying to figure out how we nurture them into a green light, because I do think that these jobs are really privileged jobs, and I don't want to, you know, it's vulnerable for you to come to me with your idea. I want to honor that and see you as much as you see us and look at us. And so I'm constantly trying to help people get to a yes, while at the same time making sure that they understand the ecosystem in which I'm operating in. I'm attached to a very large live rights network, and so I often get around the World Cup a slew of World Cup pitches, and I'm not saying I won't take them. I will take them because we commission sport agnostic, but you need to understand the limitations around footage if you are expecting a green light from me, and we cannot help you facilitate that process. Same thing with the Olympics. However, if you know that we are the Super Bowl holder, and that's a really big priority for the entire Walt Disney Company, right? Both Charlie and I sit within the Walt Disney Company, and every meeting we go to, we're listening to the Super Bowl. You probably want to be pitching in areas where the company's website and press rooms are actually speaking about and have some idea and acknowledgement of what that looks like. So for me, it's heart and research.
Thanks.
I guess for us it's slightly different in that the first thing we would expect from you is that you know the audience, or at least try and think like how the audience would think. So try and get in the mind of like an 8-year-old. How do they see the world? What are they interested in? So yes, we would of course expect you to take a look at iPlayer and see what we have, because we're really interested in hearing ideas that tap into themes, areas, passions that kids have that we don't have. But it's really important that your ideas have that viewpoint of a child. I think there's a real big temptations as adults to pitch something that we would have liked to have watched as children. And children's lives are so different today. Childhood is completely different. It's also quite a tough time for children today. So I think try and get into that mindset, do that exercise, and actually you'll see that when you get that, you're able to think ideas think really creatively and freely, and that's kind of like the sort of baseline that we want to get from you when you come to us.
Thanks, Flo. So we're going to segue into the briefs now and what everybody's looking for. And we're going to start with Bethan, but I have to, there's been a lot of discussion for the last few days. Bethan is going to show us a clip, and there are two versions of this clip. There is the X-rated version, and there is the non-X-rated version. And we've been wondering whether, and we've actually decided to go with the X-rated version. So I do have to warn you before this clip is played that it does contain full frontal nudity. Do you want to introduce it?
Yeah,
more,
so
Bethan?
just a bit of context before we show full frontal nudity. So this is our network promo that's just come out, and I think what it speaks to is who we are as a network. You know, we're the smallest free-to-air network in Australia, but I think we've got quite a big attitude. A lot of our shows try to tackle big, difficult subjects, but in an entertaining way. And I think this is what it's sort of trying to speak to, really. And we really like taking risks. We like to think of ourselves as a network that takes risks. And I think we'll play the clip, and then I can talk to you a bit more about the sort of shows that we're looking for. So that we go there headline. I think what we're trying to capture with that is that we actually do want to tackle those big, hard subjects. And I think tone is really important for us. I think often because we are that sort of multicultural broadcaster looking to tackle difficult subjects, it can often be misconstrued as we want worthy television. And I think what we want to do, I think form is incredibly important to us. And we have, over the years, tackled really quite tricky subjects, anything from sort of domestic violence, death, censorship, misinformation. We've done a lot of sort of quite heavy subjects. So I think if we just sort of go through our genres and then we can sort of talk a bit about it. So what we're probably most well known for are our sort of tentpole series, which are often factual formats that explore a social issue of some kind. So there was a show actually that went out on Channel 4 recently called Go Back to Where You Came From. That was actually a SBS format that we did quite a few years ago, but I think it speaks quite a lot to the sort of thing. So immigration was a big topic, and it still is, but the way that we sort of wanted to experience it, instead of doing sort of single documentary with one person going through and seeing someone's life, what we did is we took a group of people who had very controversial views about immigration, retracing the journey that people take to see, is there any form of transformation? So again, it's spiky, it has a sense of risk to it, but it is doing something, and I think what's really key is that we want something with impact that can actually change people's minds, but in an entertaining way. So we're certainly looking for more factual formats. Other things that have worked well for us recently is we've had The Hospital in the Deep End. That was 3 well-known Australians going to work on the front line of the public health system. But not only was it a fish out of water experience, they were actually asking real quite difficult questions about, is our system broken? So they were sort of doing a journalistic job, but also you have that sort of entertaining factor of, seeing some of our favourite celebrities sort of changing bedpans and doing all of that. So it's very emotional, but also revealing. So Filthy Rich to Homeless is another format that was in the UK, but that did really well for us. So we would love more of those sort of factual formats that sort of tackle a social issue in a really clever way. History, as we said earlier, really big genre that rates really well for us. Often we need shows that are sort of broad history. So things like Australia in Colour was one of our highest rating shows at the time. We've done another one that was a bit more sort of sensitive, the Frontier Wars, the Australian Wars, which was the first time in Australian history people were being told about sort of wars that happened with Aboriginal people when the first settlers arrived, and that was a dramatisation. And then we have more sort of populist history. So yeah, that's definitely something that we'd be looking for. And also there's areas of sort of co-production that could happen in that, because there is shared history often. So I think that is one opportunity for people globally. And I think other things, so I also commissioned sort of bigger shows, sort of like Alone. So, you know, something that fits in that sort of 10-part series, big audience play. Definitely be looking for something in that area. But also commission single films and feature docs. And so that's another area that sort of is a bit more varied, that people can get sort of single stories that also sort of tell a bigger picture. So I think all I'd say about SBS is when you think of a subject, that's almost only half of it. And I think we do get pitched quite a lot of subjects. And what we're really trying to work on is what's the form that's going to really make people watch it. When you're reading that in the sort of billings, how we're tackling it, does that feel exciting? Does it make you think, can they really do that? I think if you're feeling that when you're seeing the billing, that's sort of where we want to be landing a lot of the time. Scale, risk.
And you're up for pitches from British producers? And
yes, absolutely. And we do get that. You know, some of the things I've listed, they have come from the UK. But all that happens is it has to then filter through some form of Australian company in terms of the production. But we've done it lots of times and it's worked really well. So, yeah, certainly open to receiving pitches from UK
Brilliant, thanks.
producers.
Catty?
Okay, our mandates. I would say I talked a little bit about 30 for 30, so I'll start there. Our shorts, our films, and our narrative podcasts all follow the same formula for 30 for 30. They're director-driven, which we talked a lot about, so I'll table that for now. They're also historical in nature. So at least 5 to 10 years out, we usually like to have the subjects be able to look at the conversation retrospectively, not while they're still in it, really. And we're really looking for something, as I mentioned earlier, that starts with sports but spans well beyond that. I would say for our series brands, we have some very big franchises in the arenas. One of them, we did it with Tom Brady, we did it with Serena Williams, but we've also covered everything from sneaker culture all the way to, you know, right now we're covering the Chiefs, their history, as well as their last Super Bowl loss against the Eagles. And so it's a brand where we're willing to take risks. One of the things that we're seeing is, you know, and Charlie actually made this differentiation, which I think is really key for us. ESPN is a standalone network, absolutely, that you can get on cable, you can get on linear. It's also going to be available on direct to consumer, but we also have a tile on Disney Plus, and that's how right now is in the US. It's also going to be in EMEA here shortly. And so we're seeing that that is a completely different audience than the audiences that we have in our traditional networks that are also watching the live rights. And so those tend to be folks that are looking for more cultural stories, really grounded into like the Dude Perfect. That's something that people wouldn't have expected from us, but we are doing. It's stories that sort of are, you know, sports adjacent. We've done, you know, dancing as athleticism. That does really well for us on ESPN on Hulu because there's such a vast base of women that are on Hulu. And we're usually sitting with, you know, shows like The Handmaid's Tale there and other sort of women-centric programming that tackle big topics. And so it's important for us to know that. And so our mandate's really clear, as Dan mentioned, and as sort of Ed even talked about, we're really here to serve the audience first and foremost and what we're seeing them hunger for. And of course, I've mentioned Super Bowl, but every major live tentpole from soccer, which I know is huge here, all the way to Super Bowl and college football, we're covering it all. I would say for smaller sports, the biggest thing that I would be looking for is that the meat on the bones just has to make my eyebrows want to fall off my face, really, for us to want to do it. You know, something that's like, oh my God, regardless of the sport, this is the story that you want to hear.
And I'm right in thinking you're working with British production companies at the moment, aren't you?
Absolutely. We work with so many production companies. We work with very seasoned directors, but we also work with really first-time directors. We really welcome it all. We are a network that takes risks. One of the things that makes me the most proud, especially in the States, is that whether you have an agent or you don't, you can actually just pitch us directly, and I think that's really neat. I don't think you see that everywhere. And I feel like most of my P&L is with companies here right now, and we are looking to tell more global stories. So across our APAC teams, across our local heads of content, we really are synergizing more than ever. I mean, Charlie, keep me honest there. Sometimes when we've commissioned from same packagers, we'll exchange notes and just say, hey, is this something, what are your thoughts, what do we think? Because more than ever, our elements are living and coexisting together.
Fantastic. I think we have another clip from you, don't we? So.
I actually have a handy dandy chart that I brought for y'all. If it actually pulls up, we'll see. The reason why I wanted to pull it up, and if it doesn't, we can totally table it. It really teaches you or shows you, and you all know this, but people tend to forget this, what we're looking for when I'm sitting in the seat, right? Of course, every conversation starts at the top, and it's at the top for a reason. We're looking for the creative, right? What are the themes? What are the stakes? What are the characters, etc.? That stuff is so important. Then we're really stepping outside of it, and it's not just me. I have a wonderful team that is incredible. We're looking at the production partner. Is this the right partner to be telling this story? I have people pitching me right now. There's such a great moment around women's storytelling and women in sports, and of course, I'm not saying that only women should tell those stories, but we should give them, a go at telling those stories because there's incredible female filmmakers, and so we're really looking at the access to storytellers, the materials as well, rights and clearances, something that people normally don't talk about. Archive for us, I feel like, is an art form. Tomorrow we have a conversation around that. And then we're really looking at that slate brand fit marketplace, like, is this an opportunity for us to meet audiences that we're underserving? Is this an opportunity for us to, take it and go into the accolades route or expand the conversation? And then we're looking at, is this feasible? I've had so many people that are like, oh my God, I have an amazing idea around LeBron James. And LeBron James has his own production company, right? And if you need LeBron James to do this, I just know that the feasibility of that is probably really low. So I don't want to waste your time or ours just because we understand that marketplace, right? I say that development, if you're a good development executive, has anyone here bought a home? Mm-hmm. Yeah, some people, okay. In the States, we use Zillow. Here, I'm sure there's other platforms. Only 5% of homes are actually listed on a platform. That doesn't mean I can't go next door and be like, hey, Dan, can I buy your house? It's probably for sale. A good development executive can help you solve for that very small quadrant of the feasibility of it because we're going to listen and know what's not being pitched in the marketplace and who actually has that access locked up.
Fantastic. Charlie, what are you looking for at the moment?
I'm just thinking about how I'm going to do this. So maybe I'll talk about one genre, show the clip, talk about other genres we're interested in, genres we're not interested in, and then a couple handy-dandy tips. So I'll make this quick because I don't want to take up too much time. Contemporary history. We're sort of on a bit of a tear here. We're very proud of our documentaries of record, we call them. And just so you know, when it comes to our contemporary history, we feel you need 10 years between today and the event. So 2015 or earlier, just for things to calm down, for new information to come out, for new footage to emerge, just so we can really look at it with clear eyes. Anything more recent feels as if it might be too soon. But the contemporary history, we have two strands. One is called One Day In. So we did 9/11, One Day in America. We did something about JFK, something about the Jonestown Massacre and Oklahoma City bombing, and another strand called Race Against Time. And there's a woman here, Carolyn Payne, is the exec on all these for us. And also of the show I'm about to show a clip from. And contemporary history, we also like some anniversaries. There's a 20th anniversary of the Indonesian tsunami, Race Against Time, from last Boxing Day. And then coming up is the 20th anniversary, kind of incredibly, of Hurricane Katrina. And we have a 5-part documentary. We typically go for 3 parts. This was commissioned a while ago, but 5 parts from the award-winning Lightbox. And Oscar-nominated director Tracy Curry is across it, and a very exciting executive producer that I'm going to be so coy about, I can't tell you yet, but a super talented, amazing storyteller is also an EP that'll be announced in about a week or so. But this is a Hurricane Katrina 20th anniversary show talking about what was, correcting sort of information that has evolved to be incorrect, or frankly, it was just reported incorrectly at the time, and sort of putting the story back in the hands of the people of New Orleans. This one clip I'm going to show you it's when I looked at a bunch of clips, I think we've all seen footage of people on the rooftops. They had to punch their way or hack their way through the roofs to be rescued. This was a different clip I had not seen before, and I've seen a bunch of Katrina stuff, but it shows how that things were moving so fast to get responses in there, and how lots of things were done really wrong. But just as a short example of how one man took control, it did something very right to de-escalate the situation, and it puts me right back in 20 years ago. So it's a short clip. So, I applaud the team making that as well. Super proud of it. And so contemporary history is very important. I'll rattle through some others. I don't want to spend too much time. Ancient history, very important to us. We have a show called Surviving Pompeii with Tom Hiddleston that's been announced, which is wonderful. A big name, a double first, I guess you say. Is that the language?
Well, did he get a double first?
Double first.
Did he?
In Cambridge, yep. So I guess in America, we'd say double major, maybe. But
No.
double first. So ancient history, a clever way to get into ancient history, so it's not sort of paintbrushes and dusting things off. We really love sort of culture through different vehicles, such as food. We've got Tucci in Italy. Who is that and where is he going? That's another key to a simplicity. Tucci in Italy. This is the show that started with CNN and they dropped it and we picked it up and we think we made some tweaks to make it better. That's out now, doing very well. Other show, culture through sort of another vehicle, in this instance, magic and mysticism and shamanism. We have a show called Do Not Attempt with David Blaine. Shameless plug, he's doing a panel tomorrow at 10 if you want to see David. It's an amazing show made by Imagine. We also are into natural history, of course. That's probably our bread and butter. That's my colleague Janet Vissering I mentioned earlier, who's Across the Ocean show. We like to have fun there. We do massive blue chip stuff with like a series called Home that's been announced with BBC. We also do cheeky things like Underdogs with Ryan Reynolds, which just dropped last weekend. Another show called A Real Bug's Life that's voiced by Awkwafina. So we're trying to sort of disrupt genres in a way and do the unexpected. The biggest compliment is someone says, oh, I totally understand why that's on Nat Geo. I just can't believe you're doing it that way. It's so cool. So be extra creative in your approach. I'm sure I'm missing some other genres as well. A couple things we're not doing. We're not doing hard formats. No rules, no tribal councils, no prize money. We're not doing sports. Katya's your gal if you're doing something sports. We're not doing quick turnaround or anything less than 10 years because we're also sisters with ABC News. ABC America, not ABC Australia. So we're not doing anything that's overtly political, any ooga booga super paranormal. We have to remain true to the fact positivity of the National Geographic brand. And that there's a lot of field in which to play, but just some areas we're not going. And I'll just wrap here quickly, as we're sort of in a phase right now where we're reviewing a lot of pitches to greenlight for 2027, and we got to greenlight them in the next few months. Going back to that simplicity note I said earlier, simple, simple, simple. There's 4 things really just as the price of entry to I'm telling this to my team as they're speaking with producers, they need to answer these 4 questions before ideas come to me. 1, is the topic a household name event? You've heard me say 9/11, Katrina, Oklahoma City, Italy, Pompeii. We have a great show about Titanic that's out there right now. So household name. Next, what is the new information you're giving? And that's new primary sources, someone speaking for the first time, new archive, a book has been written, something. We need the new. Third, is there a clever, innovative way to deliver the information? The best example is we're doing a show with the BBC Science Unit and also Ryan Reynolds' company, Maxim Everett, called Meet the Planets. It started off as a sort of a cosmos-like photo reel tour of the galaxy, and through massaging, manipulating it, turned into Meet the Planets, a half-hour animated show where the planets do all the talking. So the premise is that for the first time, Big Mama Sun and all the planets are sitting down for interviews to tell us exactly how the universe was born. And we're going to spill the cosmic tea, as they say. So it's very cheeky and very fun, but all true. So that's how we went from sort of a cosmos for the 3rd time. We did that a couple times after Carl's famous one in the 70s, but now we're turning it on its head. So we want to come up with innovative ways to tell the stories. And then finally, a super simple log line, singular. I pitched a few shows a few weeks ago, and it took me 3 sentences to explain it. I should have known better. That's not cutting the mustard. That's too complex. How do you make it 1 sentence that's almost adjective-free? So avoid the hype, emphasize clarity. Household name event, new information, cool way to tell it, clear log line. That's the price of entry, and then we can get into the fun stuff about where in the world everybody's going to go and what rappelling they're going to do or what cool stuff they're going to do. But if you get those 4 basics right, which is a heck of a lot of work, you're just setting your foundation, and then you can go.
Thanks, Charlie. Just to remind you, there will be time for questions at the end, so if you have any, you can start sending through now. Just scan the QR code, and they'll all appear on my iPad in about 15 minutes. Flo, CBBC.
Yeah, so actually I think the best thing to do is to start with a clip of our upcoming Access Doc series called Stage Stars, which is done by Drama TV, and Rachel and Show are in the audience. And yeah, it's just, we're so excited about it. It's dropping in later in the year, and it's really high-end, glossy, fun. And this clip that you're going to see now, it's a compilation that sort of demonstrates the level of actuality they managed to get, the fun, the joy, but also the VFX and the look there. You'll see there towards the end that there's like a moment of sort of like heightened performances that they managed to build into the episodes that are just stunning and are really setting the bar of where we're aiming to go with our Access Doc series. So let's watch the clip and then we'll talk a little bit more about our opportunity. I think what's amazing about Stage Stars is the look that it has, and Drummer worked with a really amazing director called Remy Lauda, and he has done lots of music videos and comes from commercial and fashion films, and you can really see that. So, we are open to pictures that are for Access Doc series, and we really love ideas that come with like a really clear approach and like some confidence in terms of how you're going to tell those stories. But we really needed to think about what are the hobbies and passions that kids really want to watch that we don't already have on iPlayer. So have a think about that. And besides looking on iPlayer, listen to what kids are talking about, look online, try and see where kids are at, and try and think about what's the best way into that world. We've done Access Docs a lot. We are now on our third series of the Football Academy, which we're shooting at Spurs Academy, and it's really exciting. We've done BMX, we've done gymnastics. So what is the next fantastic, amazing world that will give you an opportunity to tell incredible stories, find really engaging characters, potential for great visuals? We can be quite flexible with the number of episodes and duration, because mostly we're commissioning for iPlayer. And I'd say we're really happy to look at a top line in the first instance and some pictures if that look is really something that you feel it's important to get across. So that's in the kind of Access Doc series space. And then we have kind of long-standing documentary brand called My Life, which is now in its 17th series. And we've done all sorts of themes and stories over time, but what has always remained a constant is the perspective. So all of the stories are told from a child's point of view. So it's stories about kids, for kids, and told by kids. And historically, My Life documentaries, I have to say, they are one-off 28-minute documentaries. And as I said, we're open to all sorts of stories. Do look at what's already on iPlayer, because we wouldn't commission something that we already have there. But the other thing that's really exciting to talk about in this forum is that historically, this series has been all about working with new and emerging indies and filmmakers. A lot of indies are now working at the first ever broadcast credit, via doing a My Life film, and directors had the first break there. So we'd love to hear from you. If you search for BBC Children's Commissioning, you'll find my email. Get in touch. We'd love to have a meeting and explore how we can work together. Think about stories that a kid will want to watch. What is a surprising story that you can summarize in one line and will make you go like, yes? That will give you amazing visuals, that will have lots of jeopardy, because kids are watching uber short form content these days, and to keep them engaged for 28 minutes, the story has to be amazing. So think about that. We're open to all sorts of themes, but we're particularly interested in stories about the environment and sustainability. And yeah, we'd love to hear more about those.
An opportunity at the moment for producers pitching to you.
Yeah, totally. So thanks for the question, actually, because we are on a rolling commission. So any time is a good time to get in touch. And, top line, a paragraph is brilliant, and we can take it from there if we feel like it's something that we would be looking at. And I guess, we commission original content, but if someone in this room has a documentary that's already kind of in production, we have precedent of kind of jumping on board quite late on if the story is right for us, and give you that extra bit of funding to get it over the line. So so get in touch. That we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. And Dan, you've got 3 channels, haven't you? So
I
they're
have,
all quite different.
I've got 3, yes. I must say, I love the that SBS brand spot. I thought it was fantastic, and I love the fact you had a long conversation about whether you could show the X-rated version. That's so very British, isn't it? Look, I think that the interesting thing for us is we're very different from, say, Nat Geo, for whom there's obviously terrific emphasis on spectacle. For us, there's a much heavier emphasis is on storytelling, and really trying to understand the sort of local relevance of a story, a historical story. I think there's never been a more interesting time to be involved in history, in the sense that there's a huge re-evaluation. As each generation comes forward, I think that there is a sort of reinterpretation, re-evaluation of history. And I think with the current generation, it's possibly more vigorous and more robust than ever before. So there's great opportunity. If you look at the things that we've done and which we're proudest of, they are shows like Al Murray, Why Does Everyone Hate the English? And the reason that was sort of important was obviously we were right in the middle of Brexit, and it had a real sort of relevance to how we see ourselves and how we have relationships with other countries and what those are built on, the sort of historical foundations. Similarly, the series you did for us, which was Ross Kemp, Mafia in Britain. You're fascinated about organised crime and the links with Britain and the assumption that we weren't ever sort of involved in that side of organised crime, when in fact the mafia took stakes in London casinos in the 1960s, and we had Roberto Calvi swinging under Blackfriars Bridge in 1982, who was God's banker. And that was the starting point for a brilliant investigation, which was very colloquial, which people understood, people sort of got the relevance of it. And I think that's the key. It's about populism, it's about relevance. Similarly, later this year, we'll have Ryland Clark and Alice Roberts doing The Witches of Essex. Now, I'm thrilled to be working with Ryland. He's intuitive, he's phenomenally bright, and he'll take Alice is a fantastic expert, but Ryland will sort of take the edge off that, and they're a wonderful pair together. And then we've got Sean Bean later in Original Gangsters, which I'm executing, along with Deep Segal, who is here. And the interesting thing for us is that Content Finance, which I won't go into, but we work heavily with Motion Content Group on the true crime space. We work with Krempelwood. Without those partners, we couldn't do the series that we do. And I think in our true crime space, it's very similar tone and sensibility and style to history. So again, it's the relevance. There's so much happening in the criminal justice system at the moment. Criminal Cases Review Commission, for example. When I arrived here, the first person I saw was Brian Hill, who's one of the great documentarians of my generation now. He runs Century Films, and Brian and Liz did a show for us, not a very expensive show, called Who Murdered You Mum, about a guy called Daniel Wing, whose mother's body was found on waste ground, the grounds of Fry and Barnet Psychiatric Hospital in North London 30 years ago. No one was convicted of the crime, and we followed Daniel as he tried to find out what had happened to his mother, and it had a real heart and soul to it. It was a different way of doing true crime, because we don't want to just pump out endless shows about people murdering women and telling the same stories over and over again. So a different way into the stories, a colloquial way, the oral tradition, finding interesting people to tell those stories, coming at it from a different angle with a contemporary resonance. And the clip I'm showing, the reason I'm showing it is because I think AI has brought a terrific sort of democratization of filmmaking, and I know that everyone's worried. I'm worried about AI. I'm constantly thinking I'll be replaced by a robot. It's only a matter of time. But the interesting thing in the filmmaking world, I think, is that you've got a chance to do things at a more realistic price point. A lot of the shows that you see now are incredibly expensive. I think this is the streamer effect, isn't it? The cost per hour has sort of rocketed. AI gives an opportunity to sort of tell some of these stories in a very sort of affordable way. This was done by Will Hanrahan at First Look, and Genny Studios in LA, Max Einhorn, with proprietary generative AI. It's called Killer Kings. It's just the promo, but it just gives a flavor. Thank you. Well, anyway, it's a fun show, and I'm not pretending the AI is perfect, and a lot of it's not fully rendered, and we had all sorts of, Max Einhorn would sort of ring us up and say, oh, I'm having a real problem with the kids, as boys, we can't get the right sort of grading for them and all the rest of it, and for some reason they started pumping out characters with ginger hair, and that wasn't right and shit. So, you know, there's a lot to learn, but I think it's a really interesting technique.
And you've had a lot of success with drama docs, or quite high-end drama docs, in the last sort of 5 years. Can you see this? Do you think this is going to replace it, or do you think it's going to be a companion alongside it? How do you see it sitting?
I think to a degree, yeah. We've loved doing those drama docs. We did Royal Bastards with 72 films back in the day about the Wars of the Roses, and Royal Mob with Utopia about the eve of World War I. They've been great to do. They've only been possible through the partnership with Sky Docs and all the rest of it. To be honest, I don't see that as... I would love to do more, and I do see AI to a certain extent replacing, you know, those were shot, I think, one was shot in Lithuania, one was shot in Romania for the Baltic tax credit reason, and partly for that, and the locations. And so, yeah, I do see AI replacing some of that, but it's getting better all the time, so it'll need to get to a level where fully rendered it has that sort of, you know, the proper look and feel. But I'm excited about what it will bring.
Thank you. We'll be coming to questions in about 5 minutes, but before we do, just some very, very quick fire rounds, just to get your thoughts on a few things. So there's always a debate that goes on between producers mostly as to how many ideas you should take into a meeting. Should you take in 1, should you take in 3, or should you take in 10? For each of you, maybe starting with you, Charlie, what's your preference in this situation, or do you not have one?
I don't have a wild preference. I would say 3 or 4, and I'm going to say a trick someone told me when I used to work at ESPN. My boss always said he always put his favorite pitch or proposal third. So you warm them up with 1, the second one you just kind of ponder on, the third one, now that's something. So don't pitch, if you pitch me, I know your third idea is your favorite. So anyway, 3 or 4, just to get through it. And also, if it's an hour meeting or a 45-minute meeting, there's time for discussion. So more than that, you kind of rush through it and you don't really focus.
I would say probably 3 sounds about right. I guess beyond that, it's very hard for us to know which idea you feel really passionate about. So I think it's good that you come targeted, so that, you know, with ideas that you love, so that we can really feel that when you're pitching to us.
Yeah, I'd say about the same. And often what we get, which is helpful, is we're sent in advance. So it's not really just a room pitch. So you're sent in advance, and then you've got time to reflect on those ideas, because sometimes people come in and they're sending something that's totally not right, and so you probably would get on the phone before they came as well to talk that through. So we have done that before, but yeah, around 3 I think would be right.
I'm definitely with both of you. I would say, for me, by the time you're getting into the meeting, we're really focused on one idea. I think if we're casually walking and talking in an event or at a festival, usually you're throwing 2 to 3 ideas, but our team, I think in the first year that I had this role, we listened to 2,997 ideas, and we did 0.9% of those ideas. So if you throw more than one thing at us, we really can't help you get to a place where we can get to a green light, and I also can't tell how much you actually like this thing. Usually when people start doing rapid fire with me, I know that they're just throwing topics, and they wouldn't even know where to start, and so it becomes sort of a moot point and a waste of a 30-minute. And so I would say more centralized and focused is always the way to go for at least our development team at ESPN.
3 for me, and probably 1 that you've just sold to somebody else that you'd be willing to throw overboard for us.
Very good. And how developed do you like those ideas to be? Are you expecting them to come in and sort of really know the nuts and bolts of it at that early stage, or is it just really a kind of notion that you want to hear, that you think might be interesting, or that could have potential?
I'll go quickly. Sometimes if you're stuck in traffic and it could just be a topic, would you do something about magic? I would say no, we have our David Blaine series, so I can nip it in the bud. But otherwise, however long it takes to answer those 4 questions for me, household name, event, new information, storytelling, technique, and give me the killer one-liner. So it's maybe 2 paragraphs.
Yeah, I'd say for us, a top line is always good. And I would say for the My Life brand, it's totally fine for you to ask questions like, have you done anything on this topic? And we can quickly say yes or no. And then for others, a succinct idea is always fine, provided that the bones of it are really clear. And if you're pitching something that has a format, it needs to be simple, understandable, with a really clear premise.
I think where it needs a bit more is, say it's access-based, you need to know that they've got the access, or if they've got the access to the talent that's actually key to it. So I think that's quite key to put in, if it sort of has those elements. But otherwise, you don't need it too long, just that first explanation. But again, I think we do get pitched some subjects a lot, and often we do some subjects more than once, but it's how we do it might be different. So for us, that's quite key.
I think for me, the materials differ depending on the comfort level with the partner. There's some partners that we know really well. There's a partner that's based here in the UK, and I know that there's a time difference. So sometimes when we're just ideating outside of the slate, the projects we already have on the slate, he will literally send me voice memos, right? Like, we connect in that way, and I'll just easily be like, nope, 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 and it allows me to like very quickly say yes or no, but we have a shorthand. And so that method of conversation is a reflection of that shorthand, and that relationship built over time. That literally started, I was joking with Charlie, like, today I say it's our 1-year anniversary because we both met at Sheffield, and we've just built this great relationship ever since that's turned into a beautiful friendship at the same time. When it's a partner that we don't know as well, I am looking for a really clear one sheet, right? I don't need a lot of words, and I recognize that development can be really expensive, and I don't want anything to be a barrier of entry for us doing business together and collaborating. And so I don't need fancy decks, I don't need all these things. However, I do need clarity, and to make sure that if you are pitching an access, that we understand if you have it or not, and that I understand where you're getting at. You just saying, hey, I get this a lot. I think this might be the thing that people pitch the most. I am going to go follow Sutherland. Like, that's an idea. People have done a lot of that. People love following people along to do things. And I was talking to Dan, I'm like, you'd get really bored following me around. And I know that I live a very different lifestyle, but I think that I need to understand what else is there, what's at stake besides just following really interesting, high-profile people around. There's so much noise in the world. It can't just be that thing, the thing.
I don't want top lines, to be honest with you. I think that I've got far too much respect for the ability of the production community to go into detail and come up with something truly original. So I think the difficulty is, if people say, well, are you doing stuff on World War II? Well, obviously, we're doing stuff on every period. There's no, so I don't, it's much more, the devil is in the detail for me. So I want to hear something that's quite worked out.
Right. And before we go to questions, favourite show that you wish you'd commissioned on another network?
I think Dan's going to go first on that one.
Well, I wish I commissioned Gogglebox, obviously. I look at the current, the two shows that I cover probably are Shed and Buried on Quest, but we are working with Henry Cole, and Bangers and Cash on UK TV, I think. The show that I've watched recently, which I really was very admiring of, was the Fred and Rose, a British horror story, which was on Netflix. And the reason is because I've done films in that area. It's a very disturbing area. I binge-watched it, and I then I texted Dan Chambers and Blink, who made it, and I just said I thought it was definitive, and I think often we bandy that word around, we're making definitive. This was definitive. I don't think there'll ever be another show which touches that subject matter as well as that has done.
I have a cop-out answer. I truly, if I see something that I really like in another network, and I am someone who watches a lot of content, not just in sports, I usually just reach out to the person and try to figure out what we could do together. And I also develop. I know what the audience wants, and I understand what the business needs, and I understand the budgets that I'm working on. So if I really like someone, I'm just going to give you the idea, and we're going to flush it out together. I have a very unconventional style in that sense, and so I don't really get envious of things I don't have. I ultimately get what I want, one way or another.
All right.
For me, it's actually, I'm always sort of jealous of other things. I love it when people are inventive, have something that feels really new and fresh. But I think there's one show in Australia, which is on the ABC, called You Can't Ask That. And it's really clever. It's really, really simple. It's just a studio interview show. And every episode is a group of different marginalised people being interviewed by people out there. So they're just cards sent in with questions. But they're really quite risky questions. So it might be nudists is one episode, or it could be prescription drug addicts next episode. It could be people with dementia. So it's sort of like public service, but it's really simple and very entertaining. It can be very emotional, and it's just straight down the barrel answering questions. And it's so clever. Sometimes just the simplest things can be the most powerful, and it's really clever. Really
that would be the Assembly over here, I think, wouldn't it?
The Assembly, they also do the Assembly.
It's different. Oh, it's different.
It's called You Can't Ask That. I think it might be on Netflix now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
So I agree with you. I think I feel very jealous when I see an idea that's just simple, clean, one line. And this is one that comes up in our kind of commissioning team all the time. Is it cake? It's just genius. It's
Oh, yeah.
like,
Is it cake?
you know, and kids love it. It's a simple premise. It does what it says in the tin. It's playful. It's imaginative. You have to watch till the end to find out if it is cake or not. It makes you want to get baking, and yeah, it's genius. Yeah.
There's two. They're both in the music genre, and it plays to this idea of shows having layers. You think it's about X, but it's really about Y. I like that. We like that for our programming. And like Katrina, for example, you think it's about a big storm that came over Louisiana. It's really about race in America, is what it's about. So I like Greatest Night in Pop, and also Defiant Ones for both
The
those.
Greatest Night in Pop was great.
Yeah, so
Yes,
those I like a lot. So yeah, jealous of those.
So we'll take some questions from the audience, one of which, this first one, which, Katy, you've actually already answered, which is, how many pitches do each of you receive, and how many do you greenlight in a year? What is the best way to pitch to you, application or email? Start. Right. Who would like to go first?
We're very happy to get pitches via email, and also very happy to arrange a meeting and chat to you. In terms of the numbers, we've kind of already discussed it. If it is in a meeting, probably around 3 is fine, but happy to get, you know, ideas via email as and when you're ready to share them.
And how many pitches do you get a year, and what sort of percentage do you reckon you?
All sorts. It's very difficult to pin down a number because, you know, it really depends on how many available slots we have, and that changes because the slate is always moving. But I would say my live films, usually we commission around 6 a year, more or less, but it you know, because we're on a rolling commission, if an idea is great, we want to hear about it early on, and perhaps we can do some development so that by the time we get to the, you know, when we get to the new financial year, we're ready to commission it fully. So, you know, get in touch. If the idea is great, we'll commission it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so we're the same. So we tend to do, you know, we're rolling commissioning like that. We don't sort of do it in rounds either. And I think what we do tend to do, we get a lot of pitches because we do tend to pitch out a lot, and so ask people to pitch to us on certain subjects, and we'll get a lot of ideas. So often we're sifting in pools, and that's on top of then the sort of just regular pitches and conversations that we're having. And if you want to pitch to us, so we have a sort of pitching portal. So you email factual@sbs.com.au. And all of those come to us, and we see them all, and we have regular sort of fortnightly development meetings. And one thing that we do, because I think a lot of networks, you know, they sort of develop things that they think are definitely going to commission, but we do, if we see a grain in something enough, we will actually go and put a bit of development money to see can it come to something else. So we do develop a lot, but it then means that there's less ratio that actually make it. So not everything that we develop will make it, and we're aware of that. So, but it can pay off too.
You said you were.
Answered. I mean, if you want to pitch to us, it's really simple. You could just look at my name, and you put a period in between my first name and my last name at espn.com. I will connect you with an amazing lead on my team. It's not just me. I'm just the face and the voice that you hear today, but there's a wonderful team of films lead, series lead, et cetera, that I can gladly connect you with, and I'll take a look as well.
I mean, rather than the total number, the ratio between the number of pitches we get and the actual number we commission has never been higher, you know, because I think that there is, as we know, there's a bit of a seismic shift going on, which I think is very tough on the production community. And I think there aren't, you know, in terms of fully funded, we're doing maybe 5 or 6 major, like the Bradley one, on Sky History and a crime investigation a year. I think the bigger opportunity is in the pre-sale area, where, you know, we're asking for much more modest, you know, we're paying out much more modest contributions, and there is a sort of, you know, a number of different partners involved and distributors involved and that sort of thing. And of those, you know, we're doing 20 to 30 or something like that a year, I think, I guess.
Okay. Another question, which Dan, you've already sort of covered this, but which has been asked, is how do the rest of you feel about using AI in your content? Is that something you plan to do in the future? Is that something you're talking about within the network?
I'm using it. Yeah, so we are using it in certain content, and I think where it sort of plays into the story especially, and, you know, it is an interesting area to look at when is it right to use it. But I've got a film at the moment where someone has multiple alters, so she's got degenerative disorder, dissociative identity disorder, and she has multiple personalities or alters. And so we're using AI to bring those alters to life in an interview setting. So it feels like for the audience that actually is a use of it that was very valuable, because you're going to be able to feel what her world feels like. And we are exploring it in a sort of drama reconstruction way as well. But it's a constant topic of how we use it, what we feel comfortable with, and it's ever changing. So, yeah.
Mine might be a little bit of a more general answer. I would say in the creative, we're open to it. We have an ESPN Edge team. They usually help us stay sort of really on top of tools available to us that we can maybe utilize to expedite productions, or even just how we're sifting through archives, since we are very archive heavy, especially in the 30 for 30 space. I would say I talked a little bit about this, but I don't want to just breeze past it. I think AI could be really helpful for filmmakers, especially when you don't have a large team or big resources to help you develop materials. In terms of decks, there's like so many systems out there that usually would be a $25,000 investment. If that can help you sell an idea, I don't discourage it, and I don't judge you for it. I welcome it.
Fantastic. Charlie, any plans for using AI on NetGeo?
Sure, and real quickly, I just want to say something that you don't want to hear. I'll go back to the previous question. We don't have a portal, unfortunately. We don't take unsolicited pitches through agents or through an established connection with a production company, so maybe you might partner up or something like that. So just unfortunately, I just want to close that off. We love getting pitches. We just have to be very strategic how they come in for different reasons. AI. AI is incredible, it's powerful, it's cost-saving, cost-effective. We have a pretty strict process in place where you can take up to, you have to fill out a form and submit the reasons and the justification. We can use AI, but it can be about a 5-month process to get it through. So even in development materials, we stick to this. So AI is going to be the part of the future. We just have a very strict process at Nat Geo about, if you want to use it, you got to fill out a form, and it can take up to 5 months, which is suboptimal in this fast-paced world, but it's just got to tell you the way it is right now. And hopefully that'll change, and we'll get up to speed and get faster. Excuse me.
Thank you. Flo?
It is a dynamic conversation, I think, AI at the BBC. And if you look online, you'll see kind of what the BBC's stance is on AI, and it's that, you know, there is very transparent information about the fact that this is a stance as at the moment, but the conversation is moving all the time. But you know, for our shows, no, we don't use generative AI. We know that the indies we work with may use some AI tools to support what they're doing, or assistive technology even, but no generative AI. And I guess if someone came with a request, that would have to be sort of escalated to editorial policy to assess if it's really editorially justified, like the case that you were describing.
Fantastic. So we are out of time. So thank you very much to our panel for giving us their time today, and thank you all for coming.
The stage as well. I don't know if people just want to draw attention to this, just in case you're wondering
Thank you,
about
Dan.
it.
God bless you.
Why it's here is because Ed Taylor runs a company called Honeybee, and they make their own honey. So one of the ways that he pitches is with, this is a tip for pitching. So yeah.
We're very sweet. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.